It is
4ZZZ,
my dudes.
By far the best sting in the 4ZZZ library. Holy God. Why are we allowed to do that? Why are we allowed to play that? I don't understand why we get away with what we do. On 102.1 FM, it is 8:03. Break Your Fingers Laughing is usually what's on Triple Z this time of night, this day of week. But Sep, Ian, and Jeff are not in for whatever reason. So that's why I'm here. And it's time to talk about video games. We're going to talk a little bit about video games tonight. I have the executive producer of New Game Plus, Jason O'Callaghan, on the line. How you going, matey?
Good, man. That sounds far more official and good than the reality of the situation, unfortunately. But yes, I am. Good to see you, Jay. Well, good to speak to you, at least.
It's close enough. It's the closest we'll get until BAM.
True enough.
So, I mean, very quickly, before we get into it, quickly run people through what is the point of New Game Plus? Why should people check out New Game Plus?
So I think, as much as anything else, we've always been, I've always been very insistent on offering, letting you guys have your own voice. Like, a lot of outlets will insist on an editorial voice or an editorial listen. Outside of you guys outright slandering people, I'm pretty nonchalant about that. So I think, as much as anything else, my favourite thing about our show is we have these diverse range of voices who, actually get a chance to say what they actually think about stuff, and not have to worry about me going, well, I don't know, you might upset this person, or I might get angry emails from this publisher. And I mean, realistically, we all do it because we love the art and the craft of it. So I think having a platform to express that and a chance to connect with people who do as well is still my favourite thing about the show after all these many, many years of doing it.
There you go. You can still glow up afterwards, even though it's usually a lot grittier than we make it sound necessarily. We can glow up. It's fine.
True enough.
So I guess there are a few things that I guess we should talk about. The first one is BAM. Battle Arena Melbourne is happening on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of May. That's at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre. I kind of briefly spoke about what Couch Warriors was, because we've kind of had a Couch Warriors spin-off community happen here in Brisbane. Can you kind of speak a little bit more? Because I know you've been part of this community for God knows how long. What is Couch Warriors? And for people who are uninitiated, why should they go to BAM?
So it is. So Couch Warriors at its core is we coin ourselves as kind of Australia's largest FGC community. So FGC being fighting game community, and for all intents and purposes, we are, as you mentioned, we have now the Queensland chapter. There's also other states that are potentially signing on to become part of the Couch Warriors. I don't want to say brand, because brand doesn't do it justice. We have these community events, community driven. So the tournament organisers are from the community. So let's say Tekken wants to have a scene, or let's say Street Fighter. Now these games, obviously, they're big, they're reasonably well known. Mortal Kombat, obviously, being the most recent one. These games are popular. They're really their communities are kind of self-propelling. But the one thing we always kind of pride ourselves on is supporting smaller events and smaller communities. So it's a lot of what we do is have these events monthly, fortnightly, weekly, and then obviously annually with BAM, where these communities can come together, play their games, catch up together with their friends and communities from different states. And it's been really interesting to see how the communities have evolved over the last kind of 6 years I've been working with them. And I think it's kind of where we are now.
It's also a really good kind of showcase of what potential we have as a community, and as I'm not sure, seeing how some of the tourneys are run sometimes, I think organization can be a bit of a strong word, because it is a lot to keep up with. But I remember when I was speaking with Jinx Esports, which is an esports outlet over in the UK, I feel like a big reason why local events, as far as BAM goes, but you mentioned also as well, the fortnightly and monthly events, they have a stage to stand on because our infrastructure situation isn't the best. And so we can kind of bring our community together, kind of hold the community together, fortnightly, monthly events, and then show the world. Because it's been part of Capcom Pro Tour for the last few years, I think. Show the world what we're capable of as a city in Melbourne and as a country in Australia, I think, as well.
And that is the thing. So BAM in itself has grown from, we were generally, the other large fighting game event, if anyone is tuning in on the internet from Sydney, is Ozhado. And then in the last kind of 3 years, I would say, Also those still running, but it's still a Sydney-focused event, whereas BAM Battle Arena Melbourne, for all intents and purposes, it is Australia's FGC major, we would say. So, like I mentioned, Capcom Pro Tour, Tekken World Tour. This year is actually Battle Arena Melbourne 11, presented by Mortal Kombat 11. So, WB are really getting behind their community as well, and bringing all these resources so they can enjoy the game in their space. And it is that thing of, it's not only the people showing up, all these international guests show up, all these great international players. Like we had Takedo last year. We had these well-known, Tekken players, well-known Smash players, all these great names coming down. But like you say, it is about that global presence, and through Twitch, I think the combined viewership last year was like into the hundreds of thousands of views just for, our little Australian tournament. And I say little, but, there were 2,000 people through the door last year. So it's not like it's some tiny little gathering of a couple of people. It's really become a phenomenon, especially in that kind of slot in May, in that calendar season. Like if people go IEM and then they come into BAM going, cool, this is something different, Melbourne-based, and it directly, talks to my community, especially if you're in the FGC.
So what does BAM 11 kind of bring that's new to the party? Like, this is going to be my third BAM, I'm pretty sure, and the last 2 years, they've both been at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre, Jeff's Shed. Yes. I think you mentioned MK11 being a presenting partner. What can people kind of look forward to in walking into the doors of BAM 11 this year?
So this year, it's the one main difference is a lot of stages will actually be lined up together. So they'll all be kind of, the communities will be combined, so that the hype of the different crowds will build up and really work with them. And we're interested to see what the kind of the feeling is about that. But like you mentioned, Mortal Kombat's on board in a big way, so they can have their own, really big space, their own screen, their own projector, their own space for people to come and play the game. But on top of that, we'll have general exhibitions, the Splatoon communities coming on board. There's a PC LAN. There's lots of other cool non-fighting game related events that we work with. And I guess that is the other thing with Couch Warriors is, while obviously Couch Warriors, for a lot of people who know about it, evoke that fighting game community specifically. It's not limited to that at all. So people do say, "Hey, well, I want to do this event with my community. Would you be able to support us?" Like, as long as you can bring us the groundswell in the community, we're always happy to have that conversation. Say, "Hey, I like this game. I want to see if I can start, a competitive scene, or I want to see if I can expand how many people show up to it." Sure, like we're always about trying to bring those communities in. That's especially where the PC LAN comes into it.
There are a few other things that we want to talk about as well. You want to throw a little bit of spice around about Epic, maybe.
It's more like, it is interesting. So for those who are kind of unaware of what, so obviously Epic have been around for a long, long time. Creators of the Unreal Engine, the masterminds, quote unquote, behind Gears of War. Made a lot of success out of Gears of War. Big Xbox title back in the day, really drove a lot of those sales. And then they for a while they were very quiet, and then suddenly, it's announced Tencent have bought in real heavy, and they've become like something out of nowhere. Fortnite was such a huge success for them, which propelled them into this place where suddenly they're taking on the big boy of PC gaming, Steam. Now, I have no affinity or fealty to Steam. Like, I've always been a console kid for one, and number two, Steam's done plenty of very anti-consumer practices in their past,
and they've been pulled up for quite a few times as well.
And this is the thing: over that period, they've changed a lot of those policies, or they've added this, or they've done whatever. But Epic have just started buying up games. So Metro Exodus, which was the recent sequel in the Metro series, if you had pre-ordered it on Steam, that would be honoured. But from any other new PC styles were an Epic Store only. The other one that was Borderlands 3, it was announced it was going to be Epic Store exclusive on PC. And recently they just bought Rocket League. So I think we're finally starting to see the end game. Like, they've got Fortnite. Tencent have a huge stake in Riot, so League of Legends. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's actually they own them, just straight up own them.
They do, yeah.
And now they've got Rocket League. So I'm like, if I had an esports game that wasn't attached to a publisher already, like a big boy already, I would be organising a share buyback because I can feel those Chinese millions coming in. You know what I mean? Like, to me, like, if they turned around tomorrow and said, "Oh, we bought out high res" or something like that, I would not be surprised. Like, I think they've come into this market real hard, real heavy because they have the money to do it. But as much as quote unquote competition is always a good thing, straight up buying exclusives, I'm not convinced that counts as actual competition. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, buying Rocket League, it's not exclusive to the Epic Store right now. Like, it's still possible to buy it on Steam, to my understanding, even though they've just bought it, right?
Until the sale kicks in. And so the argument at the moment is that once the sale kicks in, it will go Epic Store exclusive. But from my understanding, Psygnosis have said, no, that's not true. Is it Psygnosis? Psyonix. Psygnosis is the...
Oh, please, I want Psygnosis to come back.
I'm an old man. Psyonix and have said, no, it'll be available on Steam. But I wonder for how long. I mean, why would you offer that advantage on the rival platform when you kind of have to, like, the kind of people who will play Fortnite would be interested in playing, like, a rocket car soccer game. You know what I mean? Like, it's the difference, of course, being that there is a reasonable skill gap to Rocket League. Like, you think, it's just cars driving around playing soccer, but the way the physics work and the way that people have started to work those physics into the game just, like, give it its own kind of interesting meta. So it's been interesting to see how a lot of these, like how a lot of these reactions have been. And, I mean, Steam has the advantage of being privately owned. So realistically, it's not like they have to worry about being bought out on the share market from some random people. You know what I mean? Like, it's Gabe owns a lot of it, and then I think it stays with the employees. But I don't know. I just don't think that they're just having buying out all these PC exclusives is necessarily. It's not necessarily consumer friendly. Time will tell, but I'm just not convinced it's a good thing.
You've also been playing quite a few Japanese games, just in your life in general. It's not just lately, just your life. Yeah. You just play so many goddamn Japanese.
You'll have to set a time frame for me on this. But no, like, it is that thing. I guess on the flip side of that, we've mentioned obviously the Chinese influence, but Capcom, God, the last 2 years for Capcom have been an absolute perler. Like, they're doing these great remakes. They've got these great new sequels coming out of games. It's just been, like, back to back to back. Like, they had, was it Devil May Cry and Resident Evil, both, really good games. And then they just released Dragon's Dogma on Switch. So, of course, I bought it again. And I've been playing back through it again. And Dragon's Dogma is a very good video game. You should all check it out.
Our reviewer basically said just buy it on PC because the compromises aren't worth it on Switch.
Oh my God, you elitist kids are crazy.
It's still a good game on PC. You can just
playing it on the bus, playing it, like, the compromise is quote unquote whatever, I don't care. Like, it's still such a good game. I mean, the first time I played it was on 360 and it was not Dark Arisen, it was just Dragon's Dogma, the OG version. With that great intro song at the start.
And they got rid of it. They got rid of it for Dark Arisen. And I brought it for the reviewer, and he was like, wait, they removed that from Dark Arisen? And he's like, well, I'm not that, bummed about it because I'm not really into J-pop, but I got damn am. It was such a good song.
Yeah.
God.
It was such a great song. Yeah, it's one of those things. Even when Street Fighter V came out, they had Indestructible as the song at the start. And that was such a great, like, kitschy song. And even when they had all the issues with the launch and stuff, it was like, at least we got this awesome song, like the awesome meme to go with it.
I guess for,
the Switch... I mean, what about you, Jackie Boy? Have you been playing much lately? Or?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Switch. Like, the Switch just keeps being this JRPG power, not RPG specifically, but Japanese game powerhouse, right? Like, at this point, I'm really crossing my fingers for a Catherine port to Switch. Persona 5 Scramble was basically a great big FU, which... Like, as much as I'm willing to jump into a Muso game just because it's Persona, I won't jump into a Zelda Muso game, but a Persona Muso game I'll jump into. Why couldn't they just bring P5 to the Switch? Because they've done it on the PSP with P3 Portable. They did it with Persona 4 Golden. There's no Sony handheld to bring it to. They, unless they have some sort of exclusivity thing with Sony, which they really shouldn't, because at this point, it's like, I just want to play it on the goddamn train.
Well, that goes into that other argument about, like you had, what was that game? Street Fighter. So Street Fighter, for example, a part of the FGC, so one of the funny things going back to the FGC was that all of the games started coming out on PS4 because Street Fighter was exclusive to PlayStation or PC. PC's always been an unstable platform. All the PC ports have always been a bit meh, and that's a tradition that's continued with Mortal Kombat, apparently. So by default, because the biggest fighting game was on Sony, they've all kind of gone to Sony. But, like, I don't think there's a lot of those arrangements anymore. It really seems like they haven't been doing that similar kind of, we'll chip in some of the dev costs if you make it exclusive to us. So it would be interesting to see if Persona's in that boat. But yeah, it was interesting that Persona S turned out to be a Muso game.
Not that interesting. It's in a long line of it's full Fire Emblem, Zelda, Persona. It was a matter of time. I honestly need to go back and play the Persona Fire Emblem crossover FE Sharp on Wii U. I need to pick up a copy of that because I recently bought a Wii U Pro-Con. I need to jump into that. But I guess very, very quickly, I want to just put out there on another platform. I do not believe that there is going to be a Switch hardware revision this year because there's no reason to. There are security software patches that go out. There's the cost to Nintendo for manufacturing and the cost to their vision for what the Switch is. The Pro console has been rumored to be next year. Sure, I buy that. But the smaller one to succeed the 3DS, I really think is going to be too much for Nintendo to stomach. What is your argument as to why they will make that this year?
Okay, firstly, there's definitely going to be a hardware revision because, you're not allowed to say the P word in polite society, but there is a lot of piracy, and it has never been easy to do. Not that I'm encouraging you to do it because you shouldn't do it anyway.
No, don't do that.
Game manufacturers, blah, blah, blah. But, it's so easy to do it now, and they'll need to do something. And this is always the problem with it using that Shield architecture. The Shield's been cracked for years, so, whatever in the day. But I think... if we're arguing it's definitely going to be by 2020, well, I don't think you'll disagree with me on that one. I think the argument for me is always going to be there's going to be a hardware revision this year where they're going to update some stuff, different screen, whatever the case may be. Similar to what they did with the 3DS. Right? 3DS is always a good example of how they're going to kind of follow this. But I still maintain there's going to be a 2DS version of the Switch. More durable, more hardy, more robust, less prone to losing Joy-Cons and breaking rails and stuff. And if anything, they'll use it as kind of a countermeasure to the Labo. Labo is doing way better than I thought it would, in the sense that they're still pushing it, and it's still selling well enough that they will continue to push it. And they've just obviously recently announced in Australia they're making Labos available to a bunch of different colleges. Is that correct? I can't remember off the top of my head the exact.
There are some Labo school programs in Australia, at least. That is a fact. I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that is going to be the question of whether they make a specific Labo Switch, and that's the other one that they make. But I get the feeling there's going to be at least one this year, and then there's going to be some variant next year, whether that is the Pro Switch, quote unquote. They still want a powered dock or something like that. That to me is less likely. I still genuinely think if they're going to revise it, it's going to be a quote unquote 3DS successor, hands down, because the 3DS, for all intents and purposes, now is dead. All the games that they can port over, they've ported over. They're running out of puff. It's not worth it anymore. And, they always say, we're going to support this, blah, blah, blah. We're definitely not going to do that. And then they'll do it anyway, because they're Nintendo. That's what the hell they want. Whatever.
You are listening to 4ZZZ 102.1 FM. My name's Jack. This has been Jason O'Callaghan of New Game Plus. You can check out New Game Plus at youtube.com/NewGamePlusTV and at the website newgameplus.tv. Thank you so much for hanging out, Jason.
Thank you, Jack.
We'll leave you with this one for tonight, just before the next show comes on. This is TJ Davis and Richard Jacquin's Can You Feel the Sunshine from Sonic R. Have a good night, guys.